As some of you might know, we are living in a very young country that can easily adapt to innovations. According to a research conducted by We Are Social, in Turkey we are spending an average of 4.6 hours in social media, and 2.9 of which is in social networks, like Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram. According to a recent research, with 36 million active users, Turkey is the 7th most active country in Facebook use. Please welcome Product Design Manager for Facebook, Elaine Montgomery.
Can you hear me? Oh, great. And hopefully you can see me as well, so I'm a little short when I stand back here. So, hi, I'm Elaine. I'm a product design manager for Facebook in London, and I'm going to talk today about the business behind the business of Facebook. So, I'm originally from Aberdeen in Scotland. I went to art school quite a long time ago to become a fine art painter. I didn't really expect to be in any of these businesses. So this is me growing up in Scotland. Yes, that's me in a kilt. I went to art school, as I said, but now I just make crazy art things with my 2 kids at home. I've had quite a varied career over the last 19 years. I'm a little shocked to say 19 years. From business and consumer sides. So starting out in 1996, a research think tank in Palo Alto, to Cooper Design. I've worked doing consumer products. I've done business products. So you might wonder why Facebook was on the business side there. And like I say, I work on the business side of Facebook. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. I might ask you to raise your hands as well. So, who has seen these products? Okay. Anyone used this product before? Okay. To imagine most of you have. Okay, how about these products? So you've got Instagram, Messenger, and Facebook for non-smartphones. Sorry, my slides are going very slow today. So these are the products that people associate with Facebook. And in the consumer world of Facebook, you can all imagine that people want to feel things like being connected, feeling validated, and feeling loved. And that's reflected in our mission to make the world more open and connected. So I'm going to ask you some other questions, and I suspect that many of you haven't seen some of these things. So who have seen these kinds of things on their timeline on Facebook? So these are different types of ads to ask you to install games, or for a local farmer's market, or for a travel experience that you might want to have. Okay, who's seen these products? This is Power Editor in Facebook. I see like 1 or 2 hands. Okay, Business Manager? Atlas? I don't see any hands now, which is great. Ads Manager app? Or finally, lightweight interfaces. So I'm not surprised that many of you haven't put your hands up. These are just some of the business tools that we've created at Facebook to help advertisers sell their products, show their brands, show off their services. I'd never seen any of these interfaces either before I started at Facebook 8 months ago to lead the business design team in London on advertising. I was completely unaware of all the tools behind the scenes of Facebook, and I was just very much used to using it as a consumer product. But when I thought about it, when I joined, the size of companies and the amount of advertising and business that goes through all of these tools that are in the background of Facebook are really amazing. I guess I had the same experience when I joined business banking for Deutsche Bank and Barclays earlier in my career. I'd never really thought about how money flowed between businesses across global companies, how things were done in the background. And I realized when I kind of opened the door and looked inside that there's a real true economic impact of having bad tools get in the way. But I've not always felt that way about working on business tools. It's understandable that many of us shy away from working on business tools earlier in our careers. And I didn't even really start working on business tools until I started working at WebEx around 2002. Because we don't always see them as really cutting edge, exciting, ubiquitous as consumer products. But I came to understand over my career that working on business tools is really about fulfilling other people's needs and emotions that business users have that are very different from our consumers. It's more about feeling confident, so unlike our consumer things that I showed before, confident, efficient, and successful. Which also leads us to a complementary mission to making our world more open and connected, and that is to make meaningful connections between people and businesses. So how do we take ownership of making those people-to-business experiences as great to use as our consumer products at Facebook? Our design team has really grown to meet that mission, and we have teams across the globe working on our business tools, from San Francisco, Seattle, New York, and London. And I'm in the London team, which is actually a fairly new team that we're building up. And within our ads team in London, we're focusing on making meaningful connections for advertisers in 3 very distinct groups. So the first is for our very large global brands. People like Procter & Gamble, Unilever, and Coca-Cola, which includes many of the brands that you know and love, Gillette, Dove, etc. And we also work with our most forward-thinking retailers. So Burberry is one of our customers. They do some incredible things on our platform, on Twitter, and many other platforms. They broadcast their runway shows near live on Facebook, running ads simultaneously so people can nearly buy real-time the things that they're seeing in the fashion shows. These are our largest advertisers whose marketing and advertising budget is enormous. This is an incredible set of tools that we have to create to meet the needs of these customers. Not only do we work for these very, very large brands, but we also have a second set of advertisers. These are our small businesses who want to drive traffic more locally. They're not so interested in great big giant reach across the world or even within a country or even within cities. They're actually really interested in advertising within a radius of 3 to 5 miles of their own business. It's all about local, relevant, timely information rather than global reach, which is great for a shop like the American Cheese Shop in New York who want to advertise in that circle that you can see in the background, or a coffee shop in Istanbul who are really relying on locals and tourists to come in and actually do business. It's a very different set of user needs from the large brands. Our third set of advertisers, who again have very, very distinct needs, are our emerging markets and high growth markets that we work on in London. Probably no one, has anyone in this room seen an ad like this on Facebook? Probably not. This is very, very distinct for some of the work we do in London. And this is a pretty interesting story how we got to these types of ads. For a team who are Indian, missed calls is a way of life in India. But when our research team, design team, engineering team, PMs, we all went out to India for a research trip to try and understand India specifically, some of the rural areas as well as places like Mumbai and Delhi. And we were fascinated to find billboards, newspapers, TV ads, all with this missed call number splashed across them. Due to the high cost of calls in India, people are really accustomed to using this. They call their friend, they call someone, a family member, and they hang up before they pick up. Thus, they're not charged for the call, and then the other person knows that you're outside, or you have a way to understand what that means when someone's called and actually hang up on you. So brands in India had actually realized this, and they were using it on their billboards. And we saw an opportunity that we can also do that on Facebook to allow that same way that people were actually being in India. So we created a very specific product for this market that allows users to directly click through and place a missed call from an ad. This is for the Royals. And we have a third-party company that provides the mechanism for disconnecting and then calling the person back. So the message then can be from a brand, it could be from Coca-Cola, it could be from a TV channel, it could be whatever it might be. And that can contain content, quizzes, contests, promotions, coupons, anything like that, sports scores. In India, Bollywood and cricket are, of course, the most popular content. So it shows you kind of the breadth of things that we're working on, from those very, very large advertisers all the way through to sometimes individuals who are selling fish cakes in Indonesia. We work on all the different advertiser types in London. So now you've had a little glimpse behind Facebook and the range of tools we tackle. I'd like to talk about why historically business tools have not been that well designed. I must say that we have made huge strides in the last 5 years, and so it's a very different presentation than I might have given 5 years ago. And I'd like us to think about challenging why we should continue to care about making business tools any better. So unlike widely popular consumer products like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Google, only a small percentage of the population ever use business tools, yet their use affects nearly everyone's lives. In our workplaces, when our finance teams usually use business tools to magically pay in taxes correctly every month, HR teams using business tools daily to organize and manage all their teams, or even in the medical field, where data is captured constantly into business tools. Given the impact of these tools on our lives, it's really quite concerning. They're often very difficult to use. And unfortunately, many things conspire to make a poor user experience, especially in business tools. And it's actually easy to assume that they're bad because we don't have good designers working them. And that's not necessarily the case. They're often really passionate, talented designers who want to launch great products just as much as people who are working consumer-oriented areas. So what is the problem? And that gets me to my first challenge. I'd like you to think about ownership. How many products are behind the scenes in your companies? And do you, as designers, product managers, take ownership of making those the best experiences alongside the consumer-facing products? And if not, it really might be time to start making it your problem. All of the things that we're doing in the background actually affect the customer experience. Another challenge I've personally experienced that conspires to deliver poor user experience is that often companies are insufficiently staffed with design resources. And I'd like to tell you a little bit of a story about when I joined Deutsche Bank and the brief that I had when I joined. It sounded really great to me, but it may not sound quite so good to you. They said to me, we know we need to make be more user-centered, but we don't know how. I thought, great. This company knows that they need to change. Not traditionally a high-tech company, German bank, they have the foresight that they need to think differently. I thought, fantastic. The next thing they said to me is, can you help us change our organization? I thought, wow, that is a brief that I want. and then I started to imagine all the UX training, all the way from product management all the way to the executives. There were no other UX designers, graphic designers, visual designers, no one else there. So I thought, wow, this is going to be quite a lot of work. The next thing they said was, we also need to upgrade our flagship cash management and trade finance products. These were their central products where billions and billions of euros passed through it every single day. So it was the case of, we really need to change this, but please don't change anything. So I'm thinking, that's fantastic. Let's actually do some research, let's understand the workflows, is it different across the globe, before we even start to design and prototype. So these were all things I was being asked to do. And finally, when I thought they could ask me to do no more, they said, we have a new development team in Cary, North Carolina. Can you help us introduce Agile across our locations? So that was Singapore, Frankfurt, North Carolina, and London. I thought, no problem. And while we're at it, let's actually try and run an Agile methodology while no one's in the same room. So organizational change, plus user-centered product design, plus Agile methods. Those are the things I was being asked to do. Oops. I went too far ahead there, apologies. It actually sounded pretty great to me, which is why I left Google for the opportunity and stayed for many years at Deutsche Bank. But it's not really terribly realistic to hire one person to do that. So I spent the first 9 months there being the only designer in corporate banking until I could convince the company that they were right to hire me, basically by fulfilling all parts of their brief, from research, product design, organizational change, product development, until I gained enough trust and traction to build the team from there. Oh, gosh, sorry. But even though I found success at Deutsche Bank, who really had fully embraced the user experience side and the user experience-led philosophy, were sometimes still tripped up by legacy systems, which made it really difficult to improve the UI, even in very obvious ways. And so this is actually an example of one of the interfaces they showed me after they got me into the company and said, here, have a look at some of the interfaces that we have. Which gets us to my second challenge. It's around depth. I think we should all make it a mission at our company to turn our UX team of 1 and 2, because that's often how we start in companies. We don't start with a team of 12 that have prototypers, visual designers, product thinkers. It's usually yourself. You go into a company, you start building that up. But what I want us to think about is to go deep and to consider ourselves to be useful and appropriate for us to be everywhere. And to be everywhere that the product touches people. So customer-facing tools, internal tools, back-end tools, and even into the legacy systems that may seem untouchable. Because that is often the case. We're told to, hey, you can't change that. It's all part of the user experience. So we need to be everywhere. The third challenge I often find is that companies often don't conduct enough user research to truly internalize the needs of our core users. So consequently, products can be really bloated with features, or even worse, they're rolled out in the wrong way, they fail to support main use cases at the right time, which would have been uncovered in research. The resulting experience is often ineffective, inefficient, and quite disempowering. And dealing with those kind of inefficient, ineffective, and disempowering experiences wouldn't be so bad if people were only subjected to them once in a while. But for some jobs and occupations, people are really obliged to use them many hours a day. Can you imagine if you had a consumer product you had to use many times a day that was miserable, inefficient experience? You'd revolt, you'd change brand, you'd find a better option, right? And joking aside from this image, when you're a nurse in a maternity ward or a school administrator, you don't have that kind of power of choice to just change the products you're using, change the business tools. because people just don't have that choice. They're often compelled by their employer to use a set of tools. They don't often choose the tools. Usually it's someone else choosing the tools, but they're subjected to that bad experience every day. And it's not good enough to really just sympathize with people being forced to use purely designed software. It's also about helping them recapture that waste that inefficient and ineffective tools create. So that gets me to my third challenge for today. Don't sympathize with people who are using business tools that are horrible. Please take action. Strive to give people back the minutes, hours, and sometimes years of their life stolen by bad business tools. And that can include the internal people in your company, the salespeople, people who are on service calls. Give them back their minutes, hours, days of their life that they feel have been stolen from them. Make it your mission to help them get that time back. Make it your mission to make things more efficient, effective, accurate, and predictable. So we've got 3 challenges today, and I'm going to talk about some design principles we use. So put your hand up if you feel you're up to those challenges at your company. I see some people taking on the challenge. At Facebook, we've signed up to tackle those challenges. And to keep these challenges top of mind, we've developed some design principles to help us remind and guide us as we take on these challenges daily. So I'm just going to walk you through them really quickly. So the first is help people learn and grow, balance efficiency and effectiveness, bring clarity to complexity, and be accurate and predictable. And I'm going to talk through each of these just really briefly. So help people learn and grow. An example of this at Facebook is what we call the actions you might take framework we use at Facebook. Sorry, this is going ahead to the next one, sorry. This is the framework that provides ongoing coaching and prompts right on our interface to help them make better decisions. We've tested this extensively, and hopefully you will see, there we go, we can see that a little bit better now. We've tested this extensively against a group that got none of these tips on the right-hand area. You'll only have this right-hand area if you're advertising, either actively or boosting posts. We've tested this against people who didn't get any of these tips around, hey, have you tried this? Or have you noticed X, Y, and Z going on with your ads? And we notice there's a massive overall lift in active accounts when people see these things, which shows us that giving people those tips really helps people learn and grow. Pinterest is really good at this too. They're constantly suggesting different ways to use the products, even as a long-term user. The second of our principles is balance efficiency and effectiveness. So here's a couple of examples. Lack of efficient workflows is a huge pain point for many of our advertisers. In our ad creation flows on the top left, and things like Sketch, it's really important to ask those questions up front. What are you trying to achieve? To ensure people are focused on achieving the goals quickly. The third design principle is bring clarity to complexity. Our tools should make sense of complex concepts without oversimplifying. They should be powerful but approachable, helping people tackle new and complicated topics and workflows with confidence. This is actually a pretty key way business and consumer design look and feel quite different. In the design of consumer experiences, the goal is radical simplification, which you can see in some of these examples. In this austere, streamlined BMW dashboard, you know this thing is powerful. The complexity and power is literally hidden underneath the hood. Success in this space is really protecting people with having to interact with the complexity. But let's think about a different context. I don't know about you, but if I walked onto an airplane and I looked into the cockpit and saw a single on-off switch, I would probably be pretty worried. You know, there's so many things that a pilot has to deal with. Things can go wrong, they need access to advanced tools, and they need to deal with all kinds of scenarios. So sometimes if you remove too much of the complexity, you actually make things unusable. And this is what we try and strive for with our design principle. Clarify the complexity, but don't oversimplify it to the point where it loses power. At Facebook, we have this interface, and it's called our targeting UI. It helps you decide which audience you might want to target ads to, which gets back to my original thoughts around the sort of small local businesses, and its ability to target in relevant ways. If there's any marathon runners out here, and certainly anyone who knows anything about the Boston Marathon, when I say that this UI used to be the heartbreak hill of our product, you'd understand. If people get past this part, then they will actually complete the flow. If they can't get past this part, they will literally fail. So this is the point of no return in our UI. I'm not saying that we've gotten to the right spot here, but we've definitely simplified it from before. Our fourth design principle, be accurate and predictable. Our products should set expectations that they provide reliable controls, show measurable results. The information presented should be accurate and highly relevant, and this should help us not undermine trust with our customers. This is a classic quote that we use in the advertising industry that we use to remind ourselves of this problem. Half the money I spend on advertising is wasted. The trouble is, I just don't know which half. So thinking about giving some predictability, one of the very core things that we were always hearing from customers is that they couldn't actually predict what their ads were going to look like. So we provided these ad previews, which really, it's not quite delight our customers, but it did allow them to sort of see what it was they were going to be getting so that they felt more confident the next time that they were using our products. So now they can go ahead, set up their interface, they can preview it in their mobile, their desktop, and see what others will see before they've actually made something go live. Sometimes it's just very small changes that sort of give people that sense of accuracy and predictability. So to summarize, when we all go home from this conference, let's think about our challenges to take ownership of business tools in our company, go deep, take action to help people, to regain those lost hours, by creating software that helps people learn and grow, balance efficiency and effectiveness, bring clarity to complexity, and be accurate and predictable. At Facebook, I know that we have a long way to go to consistently achieve our aspirations of what we're trying to do for the quality of products we'd like to build, to actually meet all of those design principles, which is why we have those design principles around, because it's very hard to do. But I'd really love for us all to continue to raise that bar of quality in business software and to help all boats rise with the tide. We're very much at the very beginning of the journey here, certainly in the London team, and we really hope that many of you rise up to these challenges with us in the future. Thank you.